Well, the musical friendship of two of the 20th century's greatest vocalists will be celebrated in St. Boniface this weekend. The Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra is presenting an evening of music by Billie Holliday and Ella Fitzgerald, with two talented local vocalists taking the microphone. Those vocalists, Monica Jones and Hrabi. And they both join me in the Classic 107 studios this morning to tell us more about this concert. Nice to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Maybe I'll start with you, Grace. You'll be portraying Ella Fitzgerald in this concert. What makes her such an iconic figure in jazz from your perspective?
Yeah, I remember when I was pretty young, probably grade 9, 10, the first time I put on an Ella Fitzgerald CD. I remember just being absolutely captivated by her vocal ability. She is so iconically known for her scat singing and for her ability to interpret different instruments and just the quickness of her kind of wit when it comes to singing. She could make things really fun. She could perform the same song 3 different times with some similarities and some differences. She was always just kind of top of her game from the very beginning, just, out the gate, winning a singing competition at such a young age, and then just like on her way from there. On the other side of that coin, to a very different style of singing, Monica, what is that attracts you to Billie Holiday's artistry?
Well, it's kind of a similar story. I discovered Billie Holiday when I was about the same age, maybe grade 10, and I had also started playing the tenor saxophone and really felt that was my instrument. Then I would listen to Billie Holiday from my mom's CD collection, and what grabbed me about Billie is just her emotive qualities when she's singing. She could really just get to a deep emotional place in her music, and that really spoke to me. But then she also has some very light, kind of fun songs too, quick wit, and she was very influenced by Louis Armstrong, so she kind of sings like an instrumentalist. So being from an instrumentalist point of view, I think that's what attracted me to her.
Both of you have huge shoes to fill in this weekend's concert. I would even go as far to say, Monica, that you have an even more distinctive challenge in that Billie Holiday's voice has this sort of otherworldly, smoky, soulful quality like you were talking about before, an inimitable style almost, to say the least. How do you go about presenting her artistry without trying maybe to mimic that artistry?
Well, I'm going to do my best to capture her sound quality, but of course it's coming through my voice, so it'll for sure sound like myself. And like, she's one of my biggest influences, so I think that her sound quality is always in my voice anyways. And a lot of the people that I also listened to were inspired by Billie Holiday as well, like Erykah Badu, soul singers. So I think that's
okay.
Cool.
What is the relationship like, Grace, between the two sort of musical worlds that the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra will be bringing on stage? In other words, how does the Billie Holiday music that you guys will be sharing interact with the Ella Fitzgerald music that you are going to be bringing to life with your voice?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. These two singers actually do have a very similar background, and they had a lot of similar influences. Louis Armstrong was
huge one.
the most prominent jazz singer at the time. Before them, they were both heavily influenced by him. And I think that trying to find the similarities in some of their music is something that we were looking at. There's a couple of pieces we're doing together and trying to bring aspects of the two singers together, even though there aren't any recordings of them singing together at all. I think that the one thing that is really going to be nice about the show is that they are so contrasting. Considering the similarities in their background, where they both ended up was completely different. I mean, Ella Fitzgerald had a career that went right into the 90s, and Billie Holiday didn't have a long career.
Yeah.
But in the biggest thing that stands out to me about the differences between them was that everybody knew Billie Holiday's backstory, and a lot of her private life was very out there. And Ella Fitzgerald didn't have that. And so they're really seen as very emotional and then just very technical on Ella Fitzgerald's side. They're so different in that way. And I think that trying to bring them together, you have to find those elements in the other artist. So trying to find some of the more playful, articulate music of Billie Holiday, and then trying to find a little bit of the emotion in Ella Fitzgerald's pieces as well.
How do you go about putting those two voices and those two styles together on a practical level when you're rehearsing for a gig like this with the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, Grace?
Well, for this, we're just playing with a smaller ensemble.
Yeah.
And so I think having it maybe a little bit more bare bones is a benefit, because I think trying to emulate, and not necessarily emulate, but like just bring to life some of the nuance of each of these artists without trying to imitate them completely might be harder to do with a big band. In the smaller ensemble that we'll be with, I think trying to just find what makes the performance of each piece that we picked iconically them is kind of the way that we're like looking at each piece. Like, this piece is really quick, or this piece is really slow. We both picked out pieces that complemented each other, but also within the canon that we were picking from, made sure that we were showing the full range of skill that each singer had. So I think that was the main thing we were looking at when we were picking the repertoire that would best represent both of them.
So then, as you're picking the repertoire and thinking about how your voices complement one another, Monica, then how do you fit in this smaller ensemble that Grace was alluding to into the picture to try and maybe not perfectly, as I said before, mimic what Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald are all about, but how do you bring that artistry to life with these other musicians?
When we set out our set list, we were trying to figure out some of the most iconic recordings that both of these artists have done. And a lot of them were big band arrangements. And of course, we have a smaller group, so I reduced the parts down to 2 or 3 horns and a rhythm section. And Grace is actually going to be playing a little bit of baritone saxophone. And then we'll have Richard Gillis on trumpet for a little bit, and I'll be playing tenor saxophone. And so we'll also be joined by Jesse Popesky on guitar, Gilles Fournier on bass, and Alan Subban on drums.
Monica, what's it like to share jazz in an environment like the one that Le Patio 340 provides?
Well, I think it's going to be a really lovely evening. It's a nice outdoor venue underneath the trees. They have twinkly lights.
Yes.
Just kind of getting into the vibe of like 1940s, 50s style jazz. I think it's just going to be a really lovely evening.
What's it like to be performing jazz, Grace, in less than, I don't want to say unconventional, but it's not your typical like basement at the Fort Garry or something like that. What's it like to bring jazz into an atmosphere like that, and how do unique environments then interact with something that is so a genre that is so responsive to the conditions around it?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, if you're not a big jazz fan already, I think some people, there's like a little bit of a barrier to entry. People think it's very serious, or you have to know a lot about it to enjoy it. And I think kind of bringing it to a more casual atmosphere takes a lot of that away. You know, if you're going to the Fort Garry, you're going to go to the Fort Garry, most people, because they know they're going to like what they're going to see.
Sure.
I think performing something like this at a more casual venue like Le Patio, it does maybe engage a different group from the music community who are just interested to go have a drink and sit outside if it's nice out, and they'll just see what's happening, and maybe they'll like it and maybe they won't, and hopefully, we'll get some new fans, and so will Ella and Billy.